Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Steinauer. Well, let's talk about a condition that we hear an awful lot about in our clinic. In fact, we get contacted by anywhere from about 3 to maybe 15 people per week asking questions about optic atrophy. Now, this, for whatever reason, is becoming a lot more prevalent. And maybe it's just because we're more aware of it. We have more connectivity with social media than what we've ever had before. But it's something that I certainly see a ton of in my clinic. So I've done videos on this in the past, but today I want to do it slightly differently. I want to show you what it's actually like. What is it like to have optic atrophy? Now, why? Because I want you to be able to understand those around you that have the condition. And for those of you that do have it, I want you to better understand some details about it. Optic atrophy is where the optic nerve, which is kind of like a cable that runs from your eye to your brain, it's affected somehow. Somehow it's damaged, or there's something that's happened or occurred to it where you're not able to process seeing quite as well if you have this condition. And it affects peripheral vision too. And depending upon the level of severity, it can affect literally everything that you do in everyday life. Now, in order to understand it, I've got some props. So I'm just going to bear with me as I hold some filters in front of the camera so that you can see what would it be like if you had optic atrophy. We'll do a couple of things, almost like testing your eyesight, just so you can kind of see. Too bad, I wish I had an eye chart here to show you, but let's just look. Okay, so now this is like 2100. Let's look at this brochure. You can still see the details of it. If I held up fingers, you would still be able to see those. So you'd still be able to read on the eye chart, but you wouldn't be able to read some of those smaller things quite as easily. Now, what is it like if you have 2200 eyesight? So let's blur this out. 2200 eyesight. Well, you can still kind of see some of that, but it's a little bit harder to make out some details. You can still see this. You could definitely still see some things on the eye chart. Now this next one, I'm not really certain. I'm going to bet it's somewhere between 2400 to 2800, where 2400 is seen like the big letter E on the chart, and 2800 is like really blurry. So maybe it's even more significant than that, but let's take a look at this one. What if your eyesight looked like this? Can you see? Oh, hopefully, can you see my hand moving? Can you see how many fingers I have held up? Look at that. I held up one finger. Now, for you to understand how significant of a problem it is for someone with optic atrophy, I wanted you to be able to kind of get the idea, because a lot of times people say, what does that mean? What do they see? How do I really know how bad it is? Now, there are levels of sight. Sometimes we have people who come in or who contact us from optic atrophy who only have light perception, which means it is so foggy and so blurry, the only thing they can see is a hint of light if it gets flickered on somewhere. In some cases, people will have, I can get like the outline of forms or shapes, maybe even colors. Maybe I can see hand motion. See, on that last one, I was kind of waving my hand behind there, and I even held up one finger really close that you would be able to see. Okay, and in other instances, they are like, can they count fingers from a certain distance from them? And then it goes to, well, maybe if they can count fingers, can they see something on maybe like a letter chart, like the Snellen eye chart? Okay, and there's different gradations then of eyesight. So for anyone who has optic atrophy, we actually treat this condition similar to amblyopia. Imagine what I just showed you only occurring in one eye. Well, the brain would shut down the image from that one eye, because if you've got one eye that sees well and one eye that doesn't see well, why would you pay attention to that? So the brain is just going to kind of ignore that one eye that doesn't see as well. But in optic atrophy, that's not the case. It's usually about the same or equal, pretty much, in both eyes. Maybe one eye has progressed a little bit more than the other, but there's a lot more equivalency on those, and neither eye usually sees all that well. And so again, if we maybe get the idea of what it's like for people to be able to kind of see and how they have to deal with the world once this diagnosis has been made, it can be quite devastating. It can be quite life altering depending upon, again, the level of severity. Can it progress? Yes, in some cases it can. Is it stable? Yeah, in some cases it is. There's just a lot of factors and things that are involved with knowing whether or not it might progress or it might stay the same and be stable over years. And that has to do with what was really truly the cause or the reason behind the optic atrophy. Now, if you have it, or you know someone that does have it, we kind of treat it similar to, going back to what I started talking about a minute ago, we kind of sort of treat it similar to what we do for amblyopia, where they don't develop eyesight normally in like one eye or over the other. And so we work with you using some goggles, mainly syntonic or photo, we call them light therapy goggles. It's also known as photosyntonics. And there are different types of filters that are used for this. They have various colors, but we can electrically stimulate the brain to pay attention to information better and to see things more clearly. And generally, depending on the level of severity, we can improve eyesight by a couple of lines on the eye chart, which can be something dramatic in and of itself to help you to be able to see better. So if someone you know, or if you yourself has this, tag them in this video and say, hey, you've got to go watch this video. And then contact our office. If you're local to us or here within the US, give us a call. Our phone number is 618-288-1489, or you can also go to our website at visionforlifeworks.com, where you can fill out a questionnaire, and then it kicks over us and we can talk with you about how we might be able to help you, even if you're not local or even if you happen to be in India. So with that, I'm going to say thanks for tuning in, and if you haven't already, just follow us on YouTube, and that way you catch all of the videos that we put out automatically. Thank you.